Welcome to the Creative Content Club podcast with me, Naomi Rose. If you are a business owner who wants to consistently create content that connects and converts into clients, this is the podcast for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's get right into it. Hello, and happy September. Can you believe we're now into the beginning of the autumnal, well, here in the UK anyway, autumnal months of the year? It feels very much like a back to school vibe, even though I don't have children, but it does feel a bit like that. But hello, welcome to the Creative Content Club podcast. I'm your host, Naomi Rose. I say this every time, but if you're new here, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. If you've been here and listening along since the beginning, thank you. I appreciate you. It's also lovely to have you here. And one thing I'd really appreciate you doing is giving it a review, subscribing, and telling at least one, if not every single friend or person you know about this podcast. Because the more people we can tell and help with their content, the better we're going to get as business owners, because I am here to make your life easier. I don't want to make it harder. People see content as this overwhelming thing, where they've got a lot to do. It doesn't need to be like that. It actually can be a lot simpler and a lot easier to get the cut through without feeling like you're having to do a lot of legwork every single day. And that's why people don't do it, because it feels like a lot of work and it doesn't get the results. But it's actually, the simpler you do it, the more results you'll get. And I'm here to tell you how to do that. And today I want to talk to you about the 5 storytelling tricks that turn random posts into clients. I know I talk about this a lot, and if you follow me on the socials, you're on my email list, you read my blogs, you'll know I talk about storytelling a lot, how important it is, because people buy from people that they know, like, and can connect with. They buy from people that says, you get me. And that's why we got to bring this storytelling element into our content. If you aren't naturally a content creator, if writing, creating content, creating images, posting on social, writing an email, sharing your thoughts isn't your natural go-to, if that is not your skill set, then let me give you some tips on how to get better at that. Because it's a skill. Knowing what stories to tell and identifying the stories that you should be telling is really important. But this is what I want you to start with. The stories you share, the things you post, the things you put in your email are not about you. They are about your ideal clients. What you are doing is sharing something about you that's going to get them to open up a little bit more and feel that connection with you. Feel like not only do they start to know you, but you understand them. And that is why storytelling is super important. So I'm going to give you 5 tricks that can transform that everyday content that will help you start to bring in more clients consistently. So the first one is make your stories relevant. I often say that you don't have to share everything about you on social media, and that is absolutely true. You get to choose what people see and what people don't see, but the stuff that you share should be understandable, relatable to your ideal clients. Your stories, like I said, aren't about you. They're about them. You want to build that strong connection with them. And we want to start that conversation. So if you're meeting a stranger for the first time in person, maybe it's at a networking event, maybe it's a wedding, maybe it's at a friend's party, we always start with hi, how are you? Lovely day, that kind of thing. And then we might go on to, what do you do? Then you might then go on to telling a little bit of information about you, because that will get them to open up a bit more. And that's exactly what we're doing here with telling our stories on social media. We are just giving them a little bit of something that is very relevant to us, but is just as relevant to them. It's something that should be about what your audience cares about, what they recognize from their own life or want to aspire to. And it could be, like I've already talked about, the fact we're in September and it feels like autumn today. I'm debating whether to put the heated blanket on. Or it could be something, that everyday reality that you have, like getting the kids out to get to school, something that always happens, the chaos, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be about business. People don't always buy because you're talking about what you do in your business. It's always important to talk about that. but they buy from people that get them, that understands their everyday struggles, the things that is keeping them up at night, the challenges they face on a daily basis, the stress they're feeling. So it could be really, really simple, or it could be just something that they're just finding hard and they need someone to get them that will understand them. And I find this with my content. I share a little bit about what I've done because then it gets people emailing me. I had an email over the weekend about someone's own experience with their business because they're starting to see those wins. And that's exactly what it should do. Relevance is so important because it makes your readers feel seen. It makes the people you want to buy from you feel seen. So choose those moments, choose those things that have happened that you've maybe lived through that you think you want to share, and share them because it's about getting people to open up. The second trick is to show you understand the symptoms. I hear so many people talking about content. They always say, talk about the problem and show the solution. Actually, you don't go to the doctor with a problem. You go to the doctor because you've got a headache, you've got something's not feeling right, you've got a rash. That is a symptom, but you don't necessarily know what that problem is. So if you start talking about the problem, which is important to talk about, but if you talk about the problem first, people might not recognize that. They might not see that, oh no, that's not my problem. It's not my problem. It's not for me. I've talked about this before. When I got diagnosed recently with ADHD, I didn't even realize I had it until I started to recognize the symptoms. I've been to conferences or events. I've heard ADHD coaches talking and I ignored it saying, yeah, that's not me. That's not me. But they started talking about the actions, the symptoms, the things that were going on, how they were behaving. And I'm like, hang on a minute. That does sound a bit like me. And that's exactly what we need to talk about. What behaviours are people doing? What are they seeing? Mirror some of the things that people are saying. Pulling words from your clients' discovery calls. Like if you're chatting with them, think about the language they're using, that internal monologue that they're talking about when they're kind of getting things off their chest to you. Use that as the symptoms at people because it builds the attention, it builds the trust faster. The third point today is leading with emotion, not the facts. We buy with emotion. This is so important to note. Facts are useful, they're important, they're a good way of backing up and showing evidence. But what people will be more invested into is how things make them feel. Facts are forgettable, but feelings stick. All of those experiences, we were talking about it at dinner. I was at my aunt and uncle's a couple of weekends ago, and we were talking about how music and food and smells can really take us back to a moment in time or trigger something, trigger a feeling, an experience, something that makes us feel something. So when we are creating that content, that's exactly what we need to do because those lived experiences, those emotions, people make decisions based on those, it's a much more powerful connection than the facts. The facts are good for pub quizzes, right? I share facts. I love a good fact and a stat. It backs up that emotion with the logic that we need. But your stories, what you're sharing needs to show the emotion, the human side, not just the practical step-by-steps of what you do. Think of any good book, any anecdote that you would tell to a friend about something you've learned about someone. I'm doing this all the time. I often talk about the podcasts I'm listening to because I really enjoy hearing interviews with different people. And I tell these things to my husband, who generally just nods along a little bit and just, I think, humours me half the time. What I'm talking about is those emotions, not necessarily about some of the more practical stuff. You can feel when people are talking about it. You can feel it. And that's what you share. You want to share it because it's made you feel something. You feel connected. Think about what is it when you're creating those posts that you want to connect, that tell those stories, use the emotions. So write something out. If this is not your strength, talking about emotions is not your strength, this is my tip for you. Write out the post. So think about the story. What happened? What was the situation? What happened? What was the result? Then I want you to look through and see how you can put those emotions back in. How did it make you feel? Were you stressed? Were you frustrated? Were you worried? Were you scared? And then how did they make you feel afterwards? Like the relief, the joy, happiness, like achievement when you're going through it, how you can add in those emotions. So start with the practical stuff and then read back through and think about how you can really bring the story to life. And you can use, absolutely, you still use the facts to back up those feelings, but don't lead with that. It's going to get you scrolled past. It's not going to get people to stop and want to take action. And that's what we really want to do. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in my fourth point. It's like I've written this. It's like I'm in the world of segues today. I used to have a boss who used to say segue quite a lot. Myself and one of my colleagues used to count how many times he could say segue in a meeting. It was a bit like a fun task to do to keep us, awake, as you do in meetings back in the day. Anyway, I have very much digressed, which actually is very relevant to keep it short and actionable, which is my fourth suggestion for you today. So storytelling doesn't have to be long-winded. I often scroll through and I see lots of quite long form posts. Now, you will know if you receive my weekly email, I can be a bit of a fan of a long form. I do short form, I do long form. I do carousels on Instagram with storytelling bits. I do short bits, I do long bits. I do a mixture because I know my audience and the people that read my content digest stuff in different ways. We always think that storytelling needs to be really lengthy. I really want you to think about how often do you read those posts? How often do you fully read those really long posts? So if you are thinking, I need to spend hours writing this bit of content, you don't need to. In fact, sometimes shorter speaks louder. It doesn't have to give everything away. In fact, sometimes if you're writing a really long post, it could probably be about 5 posts that can be reused. What you do want, though, is to make sure that it's clear and concise with what you want people to do with it. So you can still tell stories, set the scene, give one lesson, give one point of view, how you can get to the point in a way that still invokes those emotions, but maybe take some of that waffly bit out. I can waffle on this podcast for ages, but this is about really capturing that attention online. What is it that's going to make people take notice? Remember, you're the only person that sees everything you put out there. No one else does. They will see a tiny snippet. I'm sorry to break it to you. Not everyone's going to see what you do. They'll see a very small amount of that. So it's not about being shallow. It's about getting to the point quicker so that people can digest the key takeaways you want them to get from whatever it is you're posting. Just think about how you can tell a story in a really concise way that can build momentum. And you can play about with this. I often test the long form versus the short form. If you've ever done any of my workshops, you'll know I do a lot of storytelling around one subject every single week. And I just do it in slightly different formats. So I'm not recreating the wheel, but that's exactly what you can do here. Keep it relevant. Keep it short and make sure it's actionable. There is something that people can do next that keeps them in your world. Final suggestion for you when it comes to storytelling is you want to show the outcome, the transformation, not just the pain points, the struggle. I see a lot of people saying, got to talk about the pain points. And this again goes back a little bit to the symptoms. So symptoms are important to talk about, but people want to see the transformation in a way that's obtainable to them. So I get loads of these slides into the DMs that tell me I'm going to get 1,000 leads in 3 minutes and consistent 15k months if I do X, Y, and Z in the next 20 minutes, something like that. You know, those kind of ones. I don't believe them. I don't believe it. They get deleted and blocked. But you need to show the transformation in an attainable way because I don't believe I can achieve that. It's not about, maybe the person can. I don't know. I am making a very quick judgment. But what I'm judging it on is whether I think I can. And my learned experience from my past experiences says that's completely unattainable. And that's what people will feel. They need to see the transformation in a way that they believe that they can do it. So show it in a way that they understand. Show it that it's actually simpler than they think. Show them how easy it is to achieve something. It seems like it's out of reach, but actually it's possible. Break it down in a way that really works. And you can do that by highlighting exactly where they want to be. Start with that transformation, what that might look like, showing where they are now and give them advice on how to get there. Or what you can do is share a client story, show that client success, someone like them, someone who is like them now that has had that transformation, because that's a stronger, more believable thing to do. So that is how you can really start to build those stories, is by telling it in a way that's practical. Strip it right back to the actions, the behaviors, the things that people are feeling, and write it in their language. No jargon. Don't use jargon. Try and be clever. Don't try and use long words unless it's relevant, because people don't get it. They won't get it straight away. They'll scroll on. It's a simple truth. We need to put it in ways that's clear, concise, and understandable. We don't want to leave the audience completely baffled as to what it is that you're doing. So here's 5 really quick storytelling tricks that will turn those random posts into more clients. Make your stories relevant to your ideal clients. The stories are about them. Show you understand their symptoms, not just know the problem. Lead with those emotions and absolutely back up with facts, but the emotions are the bit that's going to make them buy. Keep your posts short and actionable. Clear, concise, and consistent is always best. And show where they want to be, not just the struggle to get there. You want to show them how to get there. And that's it. That's the storytelling tricks. You don't have to be the world's best writer to do that. You just have to talk honestly without putting that kind of business hat on that we sometimes do when we sit in front of the computer think, I've got to be all professional. You don't need that. We're in the era of unpolished realness. People want to see that. They want to see the raw stuff. They want to see the stuff that's going wrong. So share that. Let people in, because that will get them to open up more, build that connection quicker. And storytelling isn't something you can ignore. It's something you need to do right now, and it will get you results faster and more consistently than anything else you do right now in content. I hope that's been helpful for you. If this is something you really find hard, then please do book a clarity call with me, and let's see how we can move you closer to getting those consistent clients and making the sales with your content each month. This is exactly what I'm here to do, is help you do that. Content isn't a nice to have, it's your investment right now. It helps move you closer to your goals. And that's what I want to do. And I have everything from the Content Club through to one-to-one packages. So please do come and have a conversation with me to let me find out a bit more about you and what I can do to help you, because I want to help you get to your sales goals before the end of this year. And we've still got 4 months to do it. So let's smash it. Okay. Thank you everybody for listening. I'll be back again next week with another episode. Thank you for listening to the Creative Content Club podcast with me, Naomi Rose. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this podcast a review. If this episode gave you clarity or sparked a new idea, I'd really appreciate it if you could share it with someone else who would find it useful. If you haven't already, give me a follow on Instagram and come and connect with me on LinkedIn. And finally, don't forget to check out the show notes to take my quiz to find out exactly why your content isn't converting into clients. Thanks again for listening, and I'll be back again next week with another